The next time a group tries to corner you, or an instigator baits you into a fight, don't say a single word. Most people think defending yourself shows strength. It doesn't. It leaks power. Every word you throw back at an aggressor is fuel. You're not defending yourself. You're feeding the fire they started. But there's a move so psychologically devastating, so disarming that it makes your loudest critics choke on their own hostility. It's not a comeback. It's not a threat. It's silence. Not the silence of fear. Not the silence of someone who has nothing to say. The silence of someone who has decided you are not worth the breath. Stay with me. Because by the end of this video, you'll never walk into a hostile room the same way again. If you're new here, this is Elanara, where logic meets the soul. We don't do soft self-help here. We do psychological truth. Hit subscribe and the bell so you don't miss what's coming. Let's talk about what's actually happening when a group turns on you. It's not random. It's not emotion. It's a trap. Aggressive groups, whether it's a toxic workplace, a social circle with a narcissist at the center, or a volatile public forum, operate on a very specific psychological contract. They throw out an insult, a dismissal, a provocation, and the contract says you respond. That's the agreement. That's the game. The moment you respond emotionally, defensively, even logically, you have signed the contract. You've accepted the terms. You've entered their arena, on their rules, on their timeline. Psychologists call this interruptive hostility. It's designed to trigger your fight or flight response and force a verbal reaction within seconds before your prefrontal cortex, the rational part of your brain, even has time to process what's happening. They need your energy to sustain the conflict. Without your reaction, there is no conflict. Think about that. Now add in the world we live in. We've been conditioned by social media, by culture, by years of being told to speak up for yourself, to over-explain under pressure, to justify, to clarify, to prove. We've been trained to perform our innocence for an audience that has already decided the verdict. And here's the brutal truth. Every time you over-explain to someone who isn't arguing in good faith, you don't look strong, you look desperate. And desperate people don't command respect. The human brain is a prediction machine in every social interaction. Your brain is running thousands of micro-calculations per second, predicting what comes next based on what it knows about social patterns. Insult delivered. Response expected. It's as automatic as gravity. So when you remove the expected response, when you simply don't react, something neurologically fascinating happens to everyone watching. Discomfort. Not yours, theirs. The brain experiences what neuroscientists call a prediction error. The expected outcome didn't arrive. The social script broke, and that broken script creates an unbearable tension, not in you, but in the aggressor and every witness in that room. This is what I call the vacuum effect. You've created a silence so complete that it has gravity. It pulls everything inward, and the only thing left to fill that vacuum is the aggressor's own words, hanging in the air, becoming heavier and more toxic with every passing second. This is the recoil phase, the instigator, expecting your energy to deflect against, suddenly has nothing to push against. Their aggression, unmet, unmatched, unreturned, turns back on itself, and now everyone in the room is no longer watching you, They're watching the aggressor squirm in the silence they created. You didn't fight back. You didn't need to. You simply held the mirror up and let them see themselves. Meanwhile, your body language. Neutral eye contact. No flinching. No blinking away. No folding of arms. No shifting of weight. You become the observer, not the target. The observer and observers, by definition, are above the fray. Let's talk about energy economics. When someone attacks you verbally in a group setting, they are spending enormous amounts of social and psychological energy. Their voice is raised. Their emotions are elevated. Their nervous system is activated. They are burning, and you are spending zero energy, zero emotional output, zero defensive posture. This asymmetry, this radical imbalance of energy expenditure is visible to every person in that room. Even if they can't name it, they feel it. The high-energy aggressor looks unstable, reactive, desperate for a response they aren't getting. You look immovable, deliberate, sovereign. Now here's the technique, the 3-second rule. When a hostile comment lands, do not respond for 3 full seconds. 3 seconds doesn't sound like long, but in a charged social environment, 3 seconds of absolute silence is an eternity. Count it out in your head right now. 1, 2, 3. Feel that? That weight, that's what you're placing on every hostile word directed at you. You are letting it sit. You are letting the room feel it. You are letting the speaker hear their own words echo back without your energy to absorb the impact, and in those 3 seconds, the social perception of the room shifts. What started as you being targeted, speechless, caught off guard, transforms into something else. Entirely, you are not speechless, you are unfazed, and unfazed in a room full of reactive people is the highest status position in the room. Now, silence is your primary weapon. But there are moments in boardrooms, in public forums, in social situations where complete silence reads as avoidance, where you need to speak. When that moment comes, you do not defend. You do not explain. You do not justify. You use what I call the minimalist response. 2 words, maximum, interesting perspective. Is that so? You think these responses give the aggressor absolutely nothing to work with. No emotional data, no defensiveness, no invitation to continue. They are conversational dead ends, delivered with total calm, and then, only if the situation demands it, you pivot with a clarifying question, not a defensive question. Not why would you say that, which leaks hurt, a calm, logical question that forces the instigator to intellectually justify an emotionally driven attack. What specifically leads you to that conclusion? Can you help me understand the reasoning behind that? Watch what happens. An emotionally driven aggressor, suddenly asked to provide logic, has nothing. They were never operating from logic. They were operating from the need to dominate, to destabilize, to get a reaction. Your question exposes that, publicly, calmly, without a single accusation from you. And here's the deepest philosophical truth in all of this. Refusing to defend your character is the most powerful way to demonstrate that the attack was beneath your notice. The Stoics understood this. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the best revenge against an enemy is to be nothing like them, not to out-argue them. not to out-insult them, to simply be nothing like them. Your silence is your argument, and it is undefeatable. Here's where this becomes permanent. Selective silence isn't a one-time tactic. It's a social brand when you consistently respond to hostility with stillness. When people learn over time that baiting you yields nothing, that attacking you produces no reaction, they stop, not because they've changed, but because the game isn't fun anymore. You've removed the reward, and something else happens. Something more powerful, the echo effect. Long after the hostile interaction is over, long after the instigator has been forgotten, people in that room are still talking about you. Not about what you said, about how you held yourself. Did you see how they just stood there? Completely calm. Didn't even flinch. That becomes your reputation. That becomes your social brand in 2026, in corporate boardrooms where psychological warfare is the norm, in public forums where outrage is currency, in social environments weaponized by narcissists and groupthink. The person who controls their response controls the room, not the loudest voice, the stillest one. So here is your blueprint. When hostility comes, and it will come, you feel it. You acknowledge it internally, and you choose. You choose not to perform your pain for an audience that feeds on it. You choose not to justify yourself to people arguing in bad faith. You choose not to spend your psychological energy defending what needs no defense. You stand still. You hold the gaze. You let the silence do the work, and in that stillness you become untouchable. Not because no one can reach you, but because you've decided they don't get to. The most dangerous person in any hostile room is never the one shouting the loudest. It's the one who has mastered the art of the non-response. Silence isn't weakness. It never was. It's the language of people who had nothing left to prove. Now I want to hear from you. Drop in the comments. What's the hardest situation you've ever had to stay silent in? Let's talk about it below. If this video spoke to something in you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you're not subscribed yet, this is the channel for people who think differently. Join us, new video dropping this week. I'll see you there.